slow down. Thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to come in here in person and try to discuss the issues at hand, which I feel is much better than doing it over Teams. So I want you to know we all really appreciate that. With that said, first order of business is to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2025 advisory committee meeting. Has everyone had the opportunity to review those minutes? Are there any changes necessary? Do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion. Do I have a second? A motion by Ms. Nurse, second by Ms. Martinez. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the cost of services study presentation and discussion. This is yet to carry on from the last month's meeting. Arthur was very helpful and detailed. Got some more questions I'd like to ask. Maybe other board members have questions, or committee members have questions. So let's get started. Anyone have a question for Mr. Parson? First is the cost of services study.
Yeah, I think there were a few questions left from.
Yeah, I think we had
Bruce.
started into Bruce.
Yeah, but you were gracious enough to supply your slide deck with the answers on those. So I didn't know if you wanted to go back through those. If you would like to, for the benefit of the whole group, I would appreciate it if it's available.
To go through all the questions again?
No,
Just the remaining.
just a reminder.
Okay. Do you guys remember which question I
I
left
think
out?
we'd only done one.
Okay. Let me try to connect again. Sorry, guys. No idea. Let me just one that was working at least.
You have a copy of the email, Morgan sent out with the questions on it. Would that be quicker to throw up there?
If you can get yours to work, because now it keeps blocking out my screen. No, so the extend actually like kind of worked, but then I couldn't drag it over, but then anything else would black that one out and black out my screen. Connecting.
Okay. Slides. How far should I
I think it was the third question.
The question was,
got through all of those? Took about 46.
Yeah, I think slide 44.
Slide 44.
I think we did this one, right?
This is slide 46. So that's memory. No, I looked at it today when I was looking at all my stuff.
back up a few slides, back up a few slides.
Yeah, can we start here?
Let's start here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Wait through the question. Okay, so this question, to reiterate, we had discussed it in the previous meetings, one of those questions, which I think it was addressed a couple times. The discrepancy as to what the 3% was. We calculated around 3,200 homes and not the 9,000. We were thinking potentially the discrepancy came from a different estimation methods for defining what it would be like as opposed to households or is it people or so we think potentially that was where the confusion was. So we had that it may have been an earlier rough estimate that can include other reporting categories, so including like vacant homes or assuming underreporting, something like that. So that's what we had for that. And then we did our reference looking at the US Postal Service and what the addresses were. So we came to 100 homes that were lacking service specifically. And that would be the 3% of the unincorporated households.
But it's 3% of the unincorporated area within Jefferson County.
Yes, yes, but it wasn't the 9,000. It was around 3,200. So that was more accurate.
Okay, thank you. Again, with this question, I'm just taking our knowledge of what equipment costs and implying that the city would be able to purchase at likewise value, possibly less.
Right, okay, so we used a unit cost of 300,000 for a semi-automated rear loader and 420,000 for an ASL in the model with a 5% annual inflation for replacement costs. We have the fleet reserve contingency of 20% that supports additional fleet procurement with at least one backup truck for all core services. We have that may or may not be realized in actual operations that are leaner. So we also pulled those numbers from the 2020 industry guidance by SWANA. So if you had more specific information, like an actual quote on the equipment, we could definitely update the model to reflect those.
I think Bob and I will both agree on $100,000 flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting question that I have is, do we know how many side loaders that we
I think we had actually told what we had on that one.
I have nothing to do with waste equipment like that, but I do buy a lot of equipment. And if you're using 2020 data, that questions all your data because you obviously have no clue what equipment costs in 2025. Like my trucks are 40% higher than they were in 2020.
Well, as I said, we use the inflation rate because we're trying to base it on actual information that we had. So if you guys have better data where you can actually quote specifically how much a piece of equipment costs, we have no problem updating the model to reflect that.
Call a dealer.
So if we can get that information to you, you can have Harold work that into this digital magic.
Okay, so Harold said 60% ASL to 40% semi-automated approximately, and he said that we use 2024 data.
Okay, thank you.
So are we good with that?
The five replacement trucks, and this is leading into concern I have with regard to how much operating costs is included with these trucks.
Mhm.
And downtime with new trucks is much more than traditional downtime was 10, 15 years ago. And because there's so many computer modules on these trucks.
Mhm.
So it's a science to keep them on the road. And I mean, if you're looking at a fleet of, what's the city fleet? 40 trucks. Yeah. 65. I wouldn't run a 65 truck fleet without 8 to 10 spares. Would you agree, Bob? At 5. Again, that's all dependent upon what kind of blended trucks you're using.
Right. You guys know specifically what page that was on? But I'm also, we said 20% allowance,
Is it
so.
20?
Page 23 of my, of that meeting package. For your, I guess, slide.
Operating costs. We identified how many spares there were, at least in this area. I'll find that information. 20 trucks would be 4 spares. That's what Harold
Or
just said.
spares for every 20.
Correct.
Thank you. Well, anybody else have questions? If not, I'll keep rolling. We can go on with. keep
Yeah,
going.
okay.
Curbs and parks. Because one question you're going to get asked at some time tonight is what is included in the 2277? And This question is part of that. Because if we have 3 services, it's going to require 3 cards
Mhm.
per household. What else is included in the 2277 quoted number?
Okay, so we have the model did include the cost of providing standardized cards, so both trash and recycling to households.
Yard waste?
No, I don't think that we can confirm with Harold. I don't included that as a card service.
How would you collect it?
Yard waste?
It is.
Well, currently,
Okay,
it
so
doesn't provide cards,
Provide your own.
yeah, or bundles.
It's currently provided by the third-party hauler in the unincorporated areas,
okay,
in most
so
cases.
are you saying that we should have included card service
think-
for yard
I think
waste?
we're looking at apples to apples. Most definitely, there should be 1 card for each service.
Are the cards in there for recycling and trash?
Yes.
Recycling, trash, yard waste.
A lot of people urban services don't have.
Understand?
Maybe we should start with the basics. Is the plan mandating trash, mandating recycling?
Well, mandating recycling, my understanding is that that's already a requirement. So trash and recycling are required. I don't know that yard waste specifically is required and
Yard
county
waste
code.
is basically prohibited from landfilling. So, yes, it has to be either treated by the homeowner or collected.
Okay. So let's
We're
just
talking about
confirm that.
mandates or are we talking about? Because
No
recycling,
charge for
right
yard
now,
waste.
what the private sector gives the customer an option. They
Okay.
have an option. So,
But the idea though would be for it to be part of the services so that, because we're encouraging recycling and we want to reduce the waste from the landfill. So we, give them the option, I mean, I guess just like in the urban services district, people choose not to, but to have it not as part of the service doesn't seem.
so to mandate it or not? I mean, it's just a simple question.
I think my ask would be include the 3 services.
Okay.
In the
We can update.
pricing.
Yeah,
I think
Harold
that's going
confirmed
to
the
be-
third part for yard waste. Just went with what is actually service and how.
Okay,
So we can include that.
thank you.
So right now, we're saying there's 2 cards.
Correct.
And that service is 1 day a week trash, 1 day a week yard waste, 1 day a
Every
week recycle,
other week for recycling.
every other week for recycling,
Correct.
weekly for yard waste, though.
I think that was every other week as well. I think it also was seasonal. Weekly. Okay, yard waste was weekly, so that was along the same lines as the solid waste when it was picked up.
So every other week yard waste, or recycle, and weekly yard waste, weekly trash.
Right.
Thank you. And I expressed earlier last meeting, I'm gonna work very hard to get to where your mind is. Because I trust Carol's mathematical genius, to some degree. I just wanna make sure all the pieces are there.
That makes sense.
Okay?
The question on yard waste, of course, it's not even throughout the year. During certain times like fall, someone may have possible container. That being handled by 1 yard waste. None. But we
I mean, I assume that that would be a service option, but I don't know that that was
Involved
We're
right
trying to-
where it is
provide at
It's-
least what
it's
the
something
standard
that's-
service would be.
additional. I mean, we have to cut off the included at the basics. And I'm happy it's once a week. They have in their yard waste year round. That makes it much simpler. But you're right, you could have 100 bags of leaves in the fall on the ground. Somebody's got, so, that's some of the flex.
It also includes.
Oh, yes, yeah, because bulk services,
Yeah, the plan simply is, we go by.
trying to get it.
And, you know, if there's 30 bags. Around that, that's-
Right.
that would be sufficient.
Absolutely.
Point is, I don't think-
So, I mean, you guys are operating in the area, what are you currently providing? Could you provide that data to us so that we could use it in the model, at least in some form?
Just a quick clarification, 3.24.6, it says modeled scenario, weekly trash collection, bi-weekly recycling, year-round yard waste service, or at a minimum. Whether yard waste.
Thank you.
We can clarify that in the report. It says that in the model, it was modeled as weekly though.
If it's modeled in weekly, then you have to have it. For the user know. Got 3 different types of service. All of them are anticipated that that's what you want to do.
Right.
Then you have to have 3 cards.
Are you guys currently providing 3 carts for your yard
Yeah,
waste
they make
service?
some wonderful cushioning containers for fall use.
Okay.
Because that's basically what happens. Am I wrong?
Fairly part, like, having a yard waste container wouldn't necessarily be, doesn't have to be part of the system, right?
That's what I'm trying to get to. What are we comparing against? Trying to come down to, this is what, that 2270, or whatever number it comes to be. After these adjustments, maybe, put it, that's what I'm trying to come to. What does that include? What does it omit?
You could take, it's one total for yard waste.
Someone asked me, I probably would recommend to not offer a yard waste. If I got to make that choice.
I wouldn't go without one. Because I still like my grass clipped and put in the cart. I happen to live across the river. And they provide yard waste collection through our city contract.
I mean, I participate in yard waste. I not provided a cart. I use 2 store-bought containers and bags if I really have to. but I'm
It's
very
just so much cleaner and easier. If you try it, and you'll never get away from it. Let's move on.
Okay.
This was a question regarding the half loads or the 1.3 loads per day. Truck has to empty out at the end of the shift. So a transfer box. So that 1.3 should represent 2 trips to the disposal facility per day.
Right, so we have the 1.3 is 2 trips within the model. Since we can't take 23 trips to the landfill, that is rounded up to 2 trips to the landfill. And anything within that range, 1.1 to 2 trips, is calculated as 2 trips on average for MSW routes. So in the productivity assumptions, table 11 and 12, we calculated how much waste an ASL truck collects and its capacity. For recycling routes, it would go to the MRF. We estimated a truck might collect on average about 10 to 12 tons before against a capacity of about 20 tons, meaning sometimes twice on a long route, averaging about 1.3 trips to the MRF per day on a calculated basis.
You want to take a look at the, putting on, what's the average truck weight?
Average. Some trucks, of course,
Okay.
I'm with you. I see those. You send me the reports every month. And so that's something that Harold or you would consider making
We can
that
update
adjustment.
that.
That would be great.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
What you're just saying is that most of the truck process.
Want to use the 4 tons maximum. Yeah, you're going to have times.
We will update that.
Thank you.
Can you even physically get 10 ton in a truck of
No,
recyclables?
not a curbside.
Like an auger.
That's what we're saying.
Wish you could, but it doesn't happen.
Plastic.
All right.
This question came from our controller, so I'm sorry. And monthly cost of service average for 10 years is essentially low due to increased inflationary pressure. And results from the most recent 2 years that they had averaged to 2657 instead of 2277 for the 10-year average used generated the cost.
Okay, so was used to calculate, it was the capital needs for fleet replacement and to accommodate the associated fluctuations of maintenance and repair needs for the aging fleet. So the inflationary factors were applied to all expenditures within the financial modeling. However, not all costs increase indefinitely. So we assumed that newer equipment, maintenance, and repair costs would decrease when the new fleet is procured. That creates 2 factors: the cost decrease for maintenance and repair. However, it increases with inflationary factors concurrently. You understand the point, though. So in the last year or two,
New trucks, we give an idea of what the increase.
I'm asking for specifics.
We're not hauling garbage trucks, but I'm not seeing a decrease in my new equipment versus old equipment. Actually, I'm seeing the opposite.
For your new equipment, you were saying
Yep,
increased
because the
repairs.
DEF systems and the regen systems, they're in the shop and they're more expensive to fix than the older equipment. I don't have any garbage trucks. I'm just talking semis. My older equipment's cheaper to run than my newer equipment.
We had a new truck that we down, or a new truck. Second week. Second.
Move on.
You can find that information out though. He doesn't know off the top of his head.
You know what the cost used for recycling and waste disposal was? And the estimated amount?
So we have, yes, that the disposal and processing costs are included, but they weren't explicitly labeled in the summary table. So in Metro's budget, the tipping fees for trash and recycling processing contract costs are part of the solid waste division expenses. So in the detailed modeling, which was section 3.4.4.2, we did account for tipping fees, assuming around $50 per ton for MSW at outer loop and incorporating the per ton recycling processing fees or revenues as applicable.
Maintenance. Okay, then, I'm sorry, Mr. McCarthy, did you give me a
For processing of recyclables, it looks like, hold on, give me a second.
forty?
So it's in the report, evidently in that section. You just need to pull it up. Actually, Karen, would it be helpful if I added you to the Teams meeting and then Harold can communicate or?
We can try, but every time I,
We'll just say that I did then.
But just be able to bring Harold up. Maybe.
He's trying to look it up in the report as well. All right, processing fees. So, for some recycling tipping fees charged to residents across the region and said recycling processing is handled. See a franchise agreement for Oldham.
I'm sorry. 99% of it in this area.
Looks like he's looking further into it, but what we currently have for most of them, it's either included in city services, included in the franchise, no separate fees. So unless you guys have the specific number in hand as well, you can provide, looking that up, but
There should be a
Probably
number.
don't want that number.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that's fair to. Can you confirm whether a number was used or not? And before the next meeting, and put it on our to-do list? And see if there was numbers used for the MSW and the single stream recycling.
for MSW, the number was 50 per ton.
50 on the MSW,
And that was based on outer loop.
okay? And on the single stream recyclable processing,
I know. He's looking it up right now.
dollars for trash, $50 for recycling.
That's what was in
They say,
this 50
So is
processing.
the processing just the processing, or is that like running around?
No, it's just the process.
Just the processing.
I mean, I'm not allowed to say that.
You know, I mean, would you agree somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 to $65?
I think it's definitely in that direction. Like upward all the way up. Here's this. Really probably.
I would also be interested in the number that was used for the MSW. How old was that?
The $50 per ton.
Yes,
That was this year.
this year.
I think that was.
Right.
Knowing what power.
Vehicle prices going up probably as much as 10-15%.
You know, right offhand what the actual contract cost is.
I say we should have a hard number we can use compared
I do not know that.
to Ms. Logan or.
Maybe not.
Well, I understand.
Oh, you can do it. 39.5. But I also know that that's not everything.
Right.
If everything is coming, this is a local. That's the rate here.
Well, I agree. I give you credit for your negotiations. And those numbers are low.
They are.
Yeah. And I had a negotiating session one time.
They are low.
And 50 for recycling. I think that's a balance.
Okay, so you want to
Excellent.
substitute at 50 and 50. Okay, next one.
Obviously, we're talking here on the choice of services. Currently centralized model allows each city to manage collection services based on the preferences and needs of its constituents, and we see wide variation is the point of nation. For detail available from the impacted cities, it would indicate that such variation has been an issue in your eyes. With your secret shopper, cold calling, whatnot, what was the actual feelings of the residents in Jefferson County with regard to the services provided?
So the wide variation, it was not meant as a criticism. It was just rather a statement of facts that across the county, the services varied widely. So we can definitely reword that to say, sound less,
No, I'm sure I word it. I want to know what the response was. You said the services vary widely.
correct.
Okay. Even though we have available to them collection of solid waste, collection of recyclables, and collection of yard waste.
Right, so of the 6 haulers, we looked at all of those as well, so you're considering, I mean, we have the screenshots of actually contacting a number of, I would say, some of the haulers even right now, put in just a random address and find out what services are offered, what's not offered, and get the price. So based on all of that information together, that's what we were saying.
Bob and I have been in business for years. And I can tell you, you don't want to pick up yard waste, and price it at $75. Come on. I mean, that's just, that's the way it is. So company has to offer it, but you can't control how it prices it. For the customer. The only thing that's available to them are the other available vendors, ready and willing and able to provide that service for a reasonable price. So that's where competition kind of drives that, you know, solution to the customer rather than the customer complaining about it. All they have to do is reach out and ask about it. For wanting to get free services like the city, it has to be available under ordinance. We have to offer it. And do it right, do it in quantity, we have to provide it at a reasonable cost. Do you agree, Bob?
Basically. The other thing that concerning decentralized model, in regards to the secret shopping and the questions, was the questions defined enough in order to understand if it was once a week service or twice a week service?
Yeah, so it was very specific as to the basic services for all three.
Question during
Yes. So, I mean, you guys were also in the meeting, we provided that all information to you. So, all been
I
aware.
don't know if I ever heard of the question.
We also sent an email with it. I don't know if they're, actually, I don't think it's specifically in here, a screenshot of it, but we can definitely provide that additionally.
Only went off the draft. Each person that called a customer or went off a draft, everybody had the same draft that they had to ask the same question. They were talking to
Correct.
somebody.
Correct.
I don't see it.
Okay, moving on. $108,000 addresses in the unincorporated areas are covered by homeowners association.
So we have, as noted on page 44, we couldn't obtain precise cost data for home rule cities and HOAs due to the lack of publicly available information. So it seems like that's specifically an unknown number. We were not able to acquire it.
For those. So the data with regard to those 108,699, what was included in the study? Did they make up an account for the stop on a route?
Let's see. So in the study, I mean, confirming, so it was the basic services looking at throughout the
Right.
county.
Right, and we're looking at when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking you're looking at things that you could not acquire data on. And that's what's reported here. There's 108,000 units that you cannot report on, correct?
Let me confirm with Harold. That seems very high. I don't think the 108,000 was the number that was unreported, but let me confirm.
Sounds like what it is 108,000 units or addresses. But we don't know how many were HOAs. So the assumption is that all 689 houses would be part of the plan. Don't know how many HOAs it is. And that's an important piece. Because if you're sectioning off the situation, you want to know exactly how many that you're talking about. If I recall, if I read that the HOA has a contract, they are excluded from.
Right.
So absolutely, we will raise and everything.
Especially
Or
when
it's
we look
essential.
at some of them,
Oh, absolutely.
like,
Didn't the haulers have that number?
All right,
Wouldn't the
so.
haulers have that number? Because
Thought so.
they have a contract that's with the
I'm sure we
haulers.
do. For each of us, you have to understand, Karen, we can't talk between one another on how many stops are in this subdivision. We're precluded from doing that at all.
No, you can't do that. Cooperate by law, but you provide your homeowner. Or maybe a fair question. Would you provide your home?
We lobbied, I will tell you that we actually had a regulation promulgated in state law last year, strictly prohibiting information being released to cities or entities
Well, I
working for
guess
cities.
where I'm going with the point is studies being criticized for not knowing the homeowners. Yet waste haulers will not provide it, so
What
we're
fact-
making a criticism for something.
The question is,
Estimate.
what factor was used in the study, or was that number simply ignored?
What we heard of it.
Or keep it positive and let's move forward. Regarding the statement, many suburban residents expressed ongoing frustration. Decades post-merger, they lacked the option to access a unified municipal waste service and instead contend with a continuous presence of private trash trucks in their neighborhood. What percentage of residents polled expressed frustration? What percentage expressed satisfaction?
So we pulled in the frustration from qualitative input, so things like the 311 complaints, comments made during public meetings or Metro Council, word of the Metro Council members, and media stories. So as identified also in the footnotes, that's where we got that information.
That be considered hearsay.
I mean,
Total is what your comment
I
says.
don't know.
I think your work, that's what you haven't studied. I'm okay with that. Answer my question of this or no.
Linda, don't the initial ones, 311, don't those include many more complaints than just frustration? I mean, doesn't that include illegal dumping?
right, so that was separated out, at least the complaints versus,
So it was just people who called in and said, I don't like a lot of trash stuff.
right, I mean, sometimes the illegal dumping was part of the complaint that, you know, it just depended on what we actually found that they said.
Where I was coming at with this question was, just because there's a potential contract for residential collection in a certain area, it does not mean that's the only trash truck that will traverse those roads in that area. We're going to have commercial collection, construction collection, and those are two other different types of waste vehicles that are going to utilize those roads. So it's not like you're going to cut the truck traffic, the waste by 70%. I mean, it's not gonna happen.
Understood.
Let's move on.
We can definitely clarify what the data is, where specifically it came from, and that obviously, you know, in areas where there's also commercial, it would be different.
Regarding proposed collection zones, I believe the study referenced potentially six, is that what the final study, 5 or 6?
Sorry, give me a second. So related to the earlier HOA question, because we didn't have a reliable count of HOA service households.
So it says,
Service area.
yes, my question says it seems zones 5 and 6 would be particularly HOA heavy.
If we could get the specific information, obviously it would be accurate. But because we don't, we're going off what we could find out. What we cannot find out and just kind of estimate.
Sure. And how did we come up with 6 zones?
Let's see. I don't think that was actually a choice of it. I think it was, well, actually, let me ask Harold for the specifics. It was a number of things taken into account based on routes, the number of households based on USPS and GIS data.
Or the balance.
Let's see. Well, I know there's a
Go
slide
ahead.
showing the 6 zones. If you want us to go back to that one so we can identify, they were kind of like little. Yeah, I think it was like really far back, very beginning. There it is. No, that's not it. That's it. Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hmm.
Oh, blue. 5, I'm sorry.
So there's yellow, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, yellow, it's not. We could definitely change
I'm
the color
sorry.
on that one.
Now, when developing these, was density a consideration?
Yeah, so proximity to landfill, MRF, stop density, major roads, et cetera, balancing them based on those variables.
And how can you compare, for example, density was a consideration? How do you compare, let's say, the dark red one with the urban services district? Or even the Newburgh, Okolona with that dark red one? I mean,
Can't. You-
yeah. Well, because if a truck is driving around the urban services district or one of the ones that's more dense, it's a lot cheaper and they can pick things up. If you're gonna be over here in this other one, I mean, that, the expense attached to that is significantly different than the other two.
Well, I guess what the driving force behind my question was, when comparing to the 2277 number quoted for the urban services, was this considered when you threw out the recommended number or the anticipated number? I believe of somewhere around 48
Yes.
in the study.
So we can also update the zones. Harold then was say either for a higher or lower number if it makes more sense to do it that way. But yet, obviously, the ones that you just called out, they were on the higher end of that range.
So if you would make a note, just send me study, I can find that. Yes,
Go to
I keep saying 2277, that's the number that's stuck in my head, so
And that is,
if I'm wrong,
that is the USD number.
that's correct.
To tell you what that came, that was derived from actual project that we all in their average. But that this year, actually, last year. And you guys know. everything. I was just wondering if that was reference to a model or if that was the real number, which that number is the real number. It's not a run from a model. That's from an actual. That's actual Metro Finance's process.
I don't understand microfinance. I can tell you, from our perspective, that's a hell of a number.
Absolutely is, but, I think where we're getting to is the number out of 2277. And then you put an average number for what the private sector is charging. And you look at that unbalances the average. A lot more per unit price if you're within the red area as opposed to the purpose. Excuse me.
Please,
If you look at this cost of services study, each one of these zones has a definite difference in number. Oh. And in the dark green, those are the least density and the highest cost. So what you're saying is that is density.
I don't know what I'm saying is, but if you put it in a plan or, there's an article in the paper that says carrying 2277 to $48 in regards to densities. But all of the areas, all 6 areas.
No, I agree that I don't think 10-year average numbers. I think parts are in there, but give it on a year. I think for the, I'd be wrong. But the number was given as in a text, you can't put the 10 different years in. So
Right.
For its simplicity, whereas then you go through the thing.
Right. But
Each year is in.
I'm saying here. I'm not saying here. What I'm saying is that the density in each area is so different that if you put your chart on it and you say 2277 or the urban service district versus the average of anywhere from $35 to $48 for what the private sector picks up. It's apples to oranges.
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, obviously, collection is different no matter where you go. The other route you go. The more density, the cheaper it is. So you get to the point where alleys, which costs. So, I think that the model's not trying to, I mean, it's just looking at what it would be in the county in a theoretical system, not making necessarily saying that everybody in the county are not, they're gonna look at Newburgh, Oklahoma, like blue and say, man, why are they getting
and I agree, Pete, thank you. Morgan, would you give Bob Bob, you want to ask your
Yeah.
question directly of Morgan?
Uh,
And she's been great about responding in detail. So,
What I'm saying is that what I was reading in a number of areas, that basically was giving averages and ranges in regards to what the current pricing is now. Then we compare that to a number service district, apples to oranges. So it sounds like we need more definitive in regards to sections that that we have to consider, what the prices are in those sections, which would identify not only the densities, maybe everything else in regards to types of service.
Right.
Because if you just group all six areas and say the average is $34 to $72 or whatever, it's just a range that doesn't make any sense because it's all over the place in regards to your density and where your routes are.
Understandable. It would also be very helpful, obviously, if we had more information from private haulers to compare, our apples to apples and what we're trying to calculate versus what you guys are actually charging in those areas, which we don't have.
I'll respond to that. Questions? Thank you.
I guess I remember looking at all these charts. How was density?
Like, how was it calculated?
Yeah, was it, what was the calculation?
It was based on GIS data that we got through the U.S. Postal Service.
And so when you calculated the average of that area, you used density.
Correct.
Spread out.
You anticipate. I don't know.
Harold said we use
Harold
centerline data as well.
I'm sorry,
He said we use centerline data as well.
center data. If you could, message Harold and ask him, was density included in the consideration of the $48 number that was referenced in the study? If so, where?
Okay, so the centerline data was, it includes street distance and mile per hour on average street. So those are all factors in the analysis. And he said that he overlaid that with the addresses on the street to get stop density. And I would say, for the sake of time at least, I'll put a note that will provide you guys where specifically in the document that's referenced and then move on to the next question.
Thank you. Page 20.
I think
So
we're
we got
on
top,
54, slide 54.
we already discussed the disposal cost. He gave us that number. WTV, Covanta is no longer Covanta. It's called now Real World.
Yeah.
Some of the waste from Jefferson County does end up at Real World. It's primarily commercial waste. coming out of, factories that are striving to hit their sustainability goals. But the disposal price in real world is 100 plus. I don't think anything's going in there less than 100 and a quarter.
Not for me, I mean, I don't do a whole lot of that, but. it's up there.
So I would just like an answer as to cost that was utilized for Covanta and when was it most recently checked?
It was definitely checked this year, actually, I believe they posted on their website, that's where they
Okay.
got that information from. So, you guys specifically have information about what,
Do you understand the process for going into Covanta?
that you guys have to transfer it up to
But you
Indianapolis?
just can't drive in there anytime you want to. Not like going to the outer loop. That's an appointment. The appointment may be 3 days from today.
Okay.
So it's really not feasible. Consider picking up municipal MSW and taking it to Covanta. Just because you can't leave waste in a truck overnight without risking losing that truck.
Just a guy that doesn't do trash, what's that have to do with picking up trash and leave or going to Covanta? No one, what's that have to do with the study taking this?
Basically, consider Covanta is considered a recycling operation because they make steam from burning waste
Right,
and they,
but no resident in their right mind is gonna pay you to take that up there.
no, it was in the study.
But for someone that, Matthew, someone that has a piece of the contract, I think everything up there would be some kind of marketing to it. Yes.
It is marketing. Yes,
That's Indianapolis.
or there's a load that goes every day out of Ford.
I take 6 loads a week up there for Ford. And it's ungodly expensive. And you could only be there certain hours of the day.
So you know the schedule. and
Oh,
everything.
absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll update that.
Okay, we move on. In this line, public narrative of how recycling process is managed, whatever made to obtain process details, recycling processes. And did your team take time to visit West Rock and during the study of it? I would believe so. Okay. There's a pretty thorough understanding of the effort and the costs to business.
Yes,
And would you feel that information in the study is reflective of the costs? Thank you. That I agree move on to that one. Did you use the national average?
looked at a combination of local data and national benchmarks.
National average is low. This certain,
So
we found per household.
we're looking at an estimate of 1.35 to 1.57 tons per household per year. And we call that number conservative relative to some of the national stats. So
Waste per current,
1.7 ton.
7 ton mat.
What do you want to get it down to?
We've got 12 months at 4.33.
She said, you said ton per year, right?
Yeah,
yes,
I don't know, 52.
you get down to pounds,
65 pound a week,
65 pounds a week.
65.38 pound a week.
What do you think, Tom? What's your average number? I think ours is running higher than.
Well, it's higher. I guess the first thing I would ask is it just trash or are you considering hard waste also?
we also added in estimates for recyclables and yard waste, 200 pounds each for those. So the result was about 1.3 to 1.5 tons total.
Total for everything.
Yep.
Huh?
Wait, hold on. Let me confirm.
He was, he said 1.75 is actually.
For total waste, trash recycling, yard, and bulk waste. 1.35 to 1.75 tons per household per year.
Okay, I believe there's lower disconnect there. If that's including all three services. Is it possible Harold could choose what numbers were utilized per service on average?
Household.
Family.
So the table, tons per stop. Um, so we have numbers for loose piles and carted. Pounds per participating stop, 275 for carted, 140. Set out participation rate, average pounds out 55 and carted 63. So the average truck fill, that is 90%. Okay, that was for yard. For MSW, he's saying pounds per participating stop is 25.
Was that you?
Okay, so yard waste were the first numbers that I provided. For MSW, pounds per participating stop was 25.
25 a week.
Say that again, Harold?
Yes, for recycling.
Oh, the one that you just sent, the 25.
Yeah, about 10 tabs open, so, yeah, that's recycling.
Okay. Okay.
Could you just communicate that, that's the email, so you know how much solid waste, how much recyclables, and how much yard waste was factored in? Be very
Should be
beneficial.
Do you know where in the report it is?
It should be, I'll add a message here and then.
Okay.
Morgan or Harold, do you recall how many people per household you utilize?
Harold, you know?
We went by pounds versus, people, so I think we used about, I don't want to mistake, less than 2, greater than 1. I think about 1.7 or 1.8. We reference the census data, so I'll check back and follow up.
Harold, how do you get 1.8 people? I mean, that second one's not very lucky.
Yeah, we reference the census data, so I'll check back and shoot a message to the team.
Well, something else, when we round it up, make it even. Either that or just
We can do
cut
that.
somebody's legs off. Per household. Which is Is this next one, Karen?
Uh,
Stated profit margin is low for solid waste industry. How is the stated profit margin obtained?
So we cited the common rule that hauler profit margins tend to range 5 to 15% of costs. Came from sources like Waste 360 and comparisons of contract financials. So we weren't able to use specific contracts, so this is what was referenced in the report. Okay, so we used specific information for contracts was more based on companies like Waste Management and Republic because they're public and we can get that information. But in any case, the margin numbers were obtained from published industry norms. And like we did reference in the footnote, I'm not sure what page that's on, page 40.
Now, I wish there was a better way to tell you that that number is wrong. Because I'm not going to open up our balance sheet to you, nor is Bob, or any other help. But I would ask that you relook that.
Yeah, that's a correct, prior statement from census data. The website is down, but we use 2.5. We reference census data to, have the best.
2.5 per household
So now we
Based on
have a
census
house.
data.
based on census data, yes.
Thank you, Harold.
That's no problem.
Okay, let's roll. I'm sorry, Senator, thank you. And just keep me on track here. Risk report for residents and non-covered areas, much less than stated in earlier reports. Why is that?
Okay, so we have, there are two different contexts for rates. So earlier in the report, 2.2.1.2, we stated private subscription costs often exceed 35 to 45 per month for the combined services, which is a general statement. But section 4.1.1, we reported secret shopper findings 27 to 39, and up to 45 to 55 with yard waste included. So we have that. They're actually consistent, but wording may have caused confusion. The initial 35 to 45 range was referring to bundled full service, usually being that the higher, which aligns with the 45 or 55 upper end we found. We did find some haulers quoting around 27 to 30 for the basic level, which was trash and recycling, no yard waste. And we had to reconcile that. We can update the executive summary and section 2 language to make that more clear.
Okay. Thanks. Obviously, the preferences is pretty much license. I think the providers with, I guess, different opinions of service and the customer and the provider. Move on. Include yard waste in the truck count. This report.
We have, it is included in the model, but you're correct with the summary table. Probably table 15 may not explicitly list the yard waste trucks.
So you're saying that you don't think that when the truck was out the yard waste, it was routing process, is that?
That's the answer. So that's the answer. If you could give us that answer.
I'm sorry, you're saying was the truck included in?
Yeah, the way I read this, looks like truck is out for yard waste.
Yeah, it looks like it's missing from the actual table, but it is included. So
It
we'll
is.
we'll update that to show that the truck is included.
Or not.
Thank you.
The answers were in the notes of the PowerPoint.
Obviously, this references that density times per stop determined. And I'll give you that one. You know, move on. After let's explain the rationale behind two helpers on each rear-load truck. Obviously, this is in the urban services district, I'm sure. And you're not going to find this in the unincorporated areas. Number one, we can't afford them. And number two, you can't find them. And number three, they don't show up. So let's go ahead and move on, Karen. If there's anything with more. Issues. Model assumes direct billing by the waste hauler to each household. The draft bills consider potential issues around non-payments. Do you factor in a bad debt?
Is there a fair amount of bad debt in the trash industry like that?
Prepaid, like they don't.
You know, you pay for the first 3 months. Good luck getting that second 3 months.
Got it.
Because you get $6, $7.
Move around and keep.
See, it's a shell game.
The question I had on this was a preferred billing process plan, whether county or the zone is going to bill everybody and collect individual contractors.
We assume that the individual contractor would be doing
So that's what the plan is called.
it.
Direct bill from the supplier to the customer. Obviously, that would have to change under any type of scenario. Move along. I recall what I was referencing there. Let's move along.
Well, I think you would like to whether or not the initial franchise, the first model, what if the first model fails? Are we going to credit for what all this with? Or is the project going to?
I think the plan recommended potential for trial.
Yeah, pilot
Heavily.
program.
I think that was your next recommendation. Correct. But then again, after the point, and with that question, I just answered. You know what happened. $6 billing residents, lower administration overhead would increase the cost of customer. Because the hauler would need to make margin in additional expense. Again, this became our controller. Sorry. Consider hauling. We talked about margin, that's impact versus cost.
Also, on the bill.
Right. Bad debt, administrative expense. Those two units.
It looks like we assumed around 50% of the direct costs as overhead, which includes the back office functions of billing. And then the profit margin would then apply on the whole package.
Margin reduced.
See that.
So we assume that the 15% of direct costs, 15, 1.5, is overhead. And then the profit margin is then on top of the whole package.
And the billing and collections.
Correct.
Thanks. This is maybe it was an off-the-wall question on my part. Certain areas in this town require very specialized vehicles. And I don't have to talk to these gentlemen back here, they know it better than anybody. But little pup trucks, out in certain neighborhoods, you can only get a small, what is it? 3 yard, a very car, yeah, 18-yard, the little pup trucks. I know we're running 3 right now. I don't know how many you get from, but that's another thing when I look at the equipment side of it. We're gonna, once we get in there, if we keep working this, it's something we're gonna have to factor in. And the flexibility of the cost was under consideration. Thanks. Report consideration of a standard franchise fee, wastewater profit margin. If these costs are correct, cost consumer would like to be 150% of the amount listed for greater, for example. This is for page 70, report in year 1, monthly cost for zone 1 is $45.55. Assume a 20% profit margin required and 15% franchise fee in place. Price to the resident, $70.08. 45, 5, 51, 1402. To give you an idea what we should put at margins. Back on some of the other questions. Is this accurate? If not, please demonstrate where any franchise fee expense or haul or profit margin is supported.
So it's like Appendix A is the baseline costs before any profit margin or franchise fee. It represents the cost of service per household. We didn't add any hypothetical franchise fee or specific profit margin. The reasoning being that policymakers can consider how much on top they would want that to be.
But if we put that in there, it doesn't disparity between the numbers is much less. Very
Yeah.
much less.
So we can add in a hypothetical number and then redo the model and incorporate that.
Understand from more mathematical mind in mind. Yeah, it's, I'd say you could utilize somewhat of a gauge. I mean, standard franchise fee starts at 15.
Except that we found cities already.
That's money grab. Once you open it up, keep coming. Did you include supervisors?
He said yes.
Thank you, Harold. Next. Thank you very much. I know we've run over. And if you would indulge me in a little bit more time, I have a couple of questions I would like to ask. And if you're not comfortable answering, please feel free to just ask. I'm troubled by the 109 board meeting I attended, where we had a local attorney come in and ask about the collection of data and how that was being utilized in the plan and how that was going to be paid for. Yes, my question is, in that it showed a copy of a request, an open record request from your company to a city, and that information, as we know now, is protected. So no harm, no foul. Because I'm just saying this because no one in this committee was ever informed of, to my knowledge, what resulted from that hard stop that happened in that meeting after that gentleman was done talking.
So two things. The first was that it is not protected, but the determination by the 109 board was that we should not include it regardless.
It's
So,
not protected from that agreement. Who
uh,
you get a ruling from the
the-
church?
it was the county attorney and also our own attorney. We have documentation of the letters, but
I will, obviously, that would be a contested issue, and we're not gonna solve that between me and you. But we feel very strongly about it, so.
but either way, it was not included. That was the determination for us to not include any of that
My
information.
lingering concern is, did that information, how long was it in your possession? Number one. Number two, did it have any influence whatsoever on your, course of action, if you will?
No, it was, well, I mean, it definitely affected what we were gonna use in the report. So we didn't include any of that information at all. So that was the change. It was a hard stop on including any of that in the cost modeling and then moving forward with what we were able to use.
So you're comfortable, there's no bias, it was driven by that information?
100%.
Thank you. Any other questions from any other, members?
No, but depending on what you're going to do next, one of the things that you've been very accommodating on is where the report will change. There are a number of areas where you set the report.
No, I mean, I, so much talking, I'm sorry, and thank you guys. But our ask was to look at the report. And Karen, you clearly stated yes on the beginning of that slide, and make a recommendation back to the 109 board on what to do with it. I don't know that I think it's a great start. I have to say, your work was admirable. Doesn't matter if I agree with the actors. I think you guys put a good effort into it. And I think it gave us something to start with. But the truth in this community is, it's my feeling that it's always going to be collaborative effort between government, public, and private business, solve the collection and processing needs of Jefferson County. It can't be done by one, can't be done by two. We've got 3 different, 4 different, 5 different landfills serving this area. Hard to believe. And that's what gives us our capacity assurance. So, not like the city's gonna go out and site a new disposal facility. There's always going to be that collaborative effort to bring a solution, and a competitive solution. I very strongly feel that the community has been quite successful in obtaining that competitive price, regardless whether it's 45, 55, or $20.77 in your services district. I think your report helps identify some stars. I think it generates a lot of thought. And I think it gives us some questions that you're going to answer in order to continue to work with this report and ask questions and build something. Because when this report is going to be most needed, is 30 years down the road. Our airspace availability is 25% of what we have today. Because then you're going to see prices probably triple what they have now. And everything's driven by availability of airspace.
Mhm.
So that's the key. He's got a great deal. He did a great job negotiating. Get your head up. Yeah, not that way. Yeah, you're going to see prices more in the Nashville range of 70 to 100 versus 30.
Mhm.
I'm saying, I think this item was basically met the requests that you were given by our committee through the contract. To the best of your ability. You don't know my position personally. The accuracy is not there. Make a usable document.
Okay.
Considering what we have in place and the success of what we have in place now, take this and give a trial zone a chance with it. I think it needs some work. Whether that's 1 year of work, 2 years of work, or 6 months of work. You know, that's for the whole community to decide.
Mhm.
You know, not just oral groups. And if anybody feels differently, please speak up. I think collaborative effort that we have here, we can strengthen through this report by sharing information and working with you more closely. I do agree with you there. You know, we can be a bit more forthcoming with some information. You're not going to get a lot of it. You know, you're talking about taking away our way of life. And, you know, it's not going to be the big hauler. It's going to be the small stuff. You will have a hauler's leave when you start franchising zones. Because it doesn't matter if you've identified 6 zones for 6 haulers, there's no guarantee each hauler is going to get a zone. No committing process.
Right.
So, you know, there's a risk there. That's why you're not going to get, you know, a loving hug every time a hauler sees you. So don't take offense. Yeah. I would like to peace agreement. Let's discuss what our next move is. We've been challenged to report back to the 109 board. You know, the determination we've come to as a committee in reviewing this document. Are we comfortable that we've actually looked at it close enough to give 109 board a recommendation?
I'd like to see, or we've made a lot of adjustments. I'd like to see the adjustments.
All right. I agree wholeheartedly with it. Yeah, so if we could get an adjusted report, my goal is to put this to bed one way or another by Thanksgiving. We can eat our turkey with, you know, pleasure. But our next meeting is conveniently a joint meeting between the advisory committee as well as the 109 board in November. Because of the Thanksgiving holiday, we're having both meetings on the 3rd Wednesday of November. Correct, Karen?
That is correct. If you all as a committee want to meet earlier, that's fine. We've done that before as well.
I'm thinking
The board meets at 5:30.
No,
Really unfair to the board.
I'm sorry, Senator, I said that in a spoke. I joined, it's gonna happen on the same night. It's not gonna be a combined meeting.
It's whatever you decide.
Yeah, I think we as a committee have to vote independently of the board, and take that result to the board. That's our ask. So, we will meet as a committee after reviewing the amended document from Morgan, we can meet as a committee and take a vote as to how we want to proceed with the documents that we can give. Does everyone agree with that?
I do.
Now, I know I'm making a lot about this, but this is an important issue.
Oh, it is.
So you all want to convene together November 19th, because, like the regular meeting date, you all come together at 4:30 like normal. After seeing the amended draft, I guess.
So timing wise for that, let's say we can get it to you by weeks out, maybe Halloween. So that would then give you guys about 2 weeks before then,
Could
actually.
you highlight the areas for the change?
Yeah, I mean, we can, I feel like that would be the easiest way, just redline the document and then you can see what's been updated.
So we see.
So then at the
We can have the
4:30,
document on the 31st. That would be wonderful.
Uh,
2 weeks.
Yeah. I think that should work.
I would like to warn you, I don't know if this law pertains to advisory committee meetings. I don't remember, but we should not, if we want to meet to discuss the amended report prior to the next meeting, we should do that as a group. We should not partake in meetings for more than 2 people. I guess that's something that sticks in my mind from ethics training. You get 3 or 4, you're in trouble. Andrew, you want to say legal spin on that?
Well, no, but we are required to have open
it could be announced. If you all wanted to meet on a different day, we can make sure that gets announced. You
All
just
right.
have to say what it is.
Good. I just want to be prepared so that after the end of our advisory meeting on 17th, that date,
November,
November
so it's November 19th.
19th.
And what I wanted to clarify is I can still set up the meeting for 4:30 for advisory committee, but it would only go till 5:30 when the board.
I think that would be sufficient. So if you can get that back to us in October, the goal would be to meet as advisory committee, come up with a response to the request made by the Wilhelmine board, and he'll deliver that to them, deliverable after the meeting thereafter. That makes sense with everyone? So it also requires me to take your ability to attend in person. Next meeting. Confirm and or contest votes when we're doing a what do they call it,
Hybrid
a
or.
hybrid meeting, yes.
Well, this room is not working for us, virtually, so until we get our space. In person is it, we can't do it.
Does anyone feel differently about that game plan moving forward? Okay, in-person meeting. Is there any other questions that any other board members have? Do we have any questions from anybody in the audience you addressed? Oh,
May I move?
just 1 minute. I want to extend my deep gratitude to you for going through painstaking questions over the course of an hour and a half. Thank you very much. I have a great deal of respect for you, and I appreciate your answers and the ability to respond on the 31st is one. Thank you once again. Pleasure. And now we're gonna.
I'd like to make a motion.
We have a second. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing no motion carries. Thank you very much.